All right, let's just jump right in. Think about this for a second. Those stimulus checks you might have gotten, the interest rate on your mortgage, the way our governments basically flip a switch to fight a recession. What if I told you all of that was pretty much dreamed up by one guy? And this wasn't just some stuffy economist. He was an art collector, a high-stakes speculator. Some might even call him a magician who saved capitalism from itself. This is the story of John Maynard Keynes.
And that's really the heart of it. His ghost is basically in the machine of our entire modern economy. I mean, think about the 2008 financial crisis or the pandemic in 2020. Whenever things get genuinely terrifying on a global scale, what do? We reach for the emergency toolkit that he built almost 100 years ago. So you might be picturing some academic in a dusty old library, right? Nope, not even close. To really get his revolutionary ideas, you first have to understand the man himself. And he was a walking, talking, fascinating bundle of contradictions.
And his story doesn't start in a university or a bank. It starts in a bohemian art circle. You see, his early life is the absolute key to unlocking why his economic ideas were so radical.
And this really gets to the core of who Keynes was. You have to understand, he wasn't hanging out with bankers. He was part of the Bloomsbury Group, with people like Virginia Woolf. For them, the whole point of life wasn't money. It was beauty, relationships, ideas. Economics? That was just boring homework you had to do to get to the good stuff. He literally thought the love of money was a sickness, calling it a repugnant morbidity. And that perspective, that distance, it let him see the flaws in the system that everyone else who was inside the machine just couldn't.
I mean, just look at this. The guy was a total paradox. On one hand, a proper Cambridge academic. On the other, a reckless gambler on the stock market. A dedicated public servant who was also a completely ruthless investor. He didn't just write theories about markets, he was in the trenches, playing the game. This was not a man who lived in an ivory tower. He was all about the real world of risk and, frankly, appetite. And you gotta love this detail. He would supposedly wake up surrounded by financial papers and manage one of the most successful investment funds of his time, all before even getting out of bed. Now, he almost went bankrupt early on trying to predict big market swings, but he learned from his mistakes. He ended up developing a style that a young Warren Buffett would have recognized. Forget the day-to-day panic, just focus on the real, long-term value of a few solid companies. So, when the entire world economy just fell off a cliff in 1929, this was the man who was ready with an answer. He saw the Great Depression not as some kind of moral failure that required everyone to suffer, but as a technical problem, a bug in the system that needed a clever fix. This was his brilliant metaphor. He said, look, the economy is like a car. The engine, the factories, the workers, they're all still there. They're all perfectly fine. The problem is a tiny but crucial part, the magneto, the thing that creates the spark, is broken. And for him, that spark was confidence in the financial system. So the lesson was simple. You don't need to scrap the whole car. You just need a mechanic to come in and fix that one broken part. And this leads us to one of his most famous and, frankly, kind of mind-bending ideas, the paradox of thrift. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Times are tough, so you save more money. That's a smart, responsible thing for you to do. But what happens when everybody does it at the same time? Well, nobody's spending, and if nobody's spending, businesses aren't selling. They fire people. The whole economy just seizes up, so your very smart, sensible decision, when multiplied by millions of other people making the same smart, sensible decision, ends up creating the exact disaster you were all afraid of. It's a total paradox. So if we can't rely on people to spend, what's the answer? The government steps in. And here's the magic trick. It's called the multiplier effect. Keynes pointed out that $1 of government spending doesn't just add $1 to the economy. That dollar gets paid to a construction worker, who then spends most of it at a local shop. And the shop owner then spends most of that on supplies, and so on and so on. That initial injection of cash just ripples out, creating way more economic activity than the original investment. So why do these massive booms and busts happen in the first place? Well, for Keynes, the answer wasn't on a spreadsheet. It was in our heads. He coined the term animal spirits, that gut feeling, that wave of irrational optimism that makes everyone want to build and invest, or that contagious panic that makes everyone sell everything at once. He basically said, hey, markets aren't run by logical robots. They're run by emotional, sometimes panicky humans. And because of that, the government has a job to do, to be the calm, rational adult in the room when our collective animal spirits start to go off the rails. Now, this idea that the government should step in and manage our collective moods, was radical. And it put Keynes on a direct collision course with another giant of economics, Friedrich Hayek. Their intellectual battle would pretty much define the next 100 years of economic thinking. You can basically boil down their entire fight to these two simple metaphors. For Keynes, the economy was a man-made machine, like a car. And when it breaks down, you need a smart mechanic, that's the government, to pop the hood and fix it. But for Hayek, the economy was more like a garden, a complex, organic, living thing. A gardener can tend to the soil and create the right conditions, sure, but they can't force the plants to grow. And if they try to micromanage it, they'll just trample everything. And this table really breaks it down. Keynes saw a crisis as a simple lack of spending, and the fix was for the government to step in and spend money. Hayek, on the other hand, thought the crisis was caused by government meddling in the first place, and the only real cure was to just let the system go through a painful but necessary correction. It all came down to this. Keynes was like an ER doctor, focused on stopping the bleeding right now. Hayek was the long-term specialist, focused on the patient's overall health, even if the medicine tasted awful. This was Keynes's famous comeback, and it's not as cynical as it sounds. His point was a moral one. I mean, who cares if your theory promises that everything will be great in the long run if people are literally starving in the streets today? He made a choice to focus on the immediate, human suffering. After World War II, Keynes's focus on the here and now completely took over. His ideas dominated the globe. But their story since then has been a wild roller coaster of success, failure, and then constant comebacks. You can see it right here on this timeline. For about 30 years after the war, his ideas fueled this incredible boom, what people call the golden age of capitalism. But then the 1970s hit, and his models seemed to just break. We got this new monster called stagflation. That's high unemployment and high inflation at the same time, something his theories said shouldn't happen. Keynesianism was basically declared dead. But then 2008 happened, and then 2020. And in both of those moments of pure sheer panic, guess which toolkit every government in the world reached for? His. It seems when things get really, really bad, we all become Keynesians again. But for all his brilliance, Keynes had one massive blind spot. Back in 1930, he predicted that by our time, technology would have made us so productive that we'd only need to work about 15 hours a week. The rest of the time would be for leisure, art, and philosophy. He was dead on about the productivity growth, but completely, spectacularly wrong about the working hours. So, what happened? Well, it seems he missed three big things. First, we created all this incredible wealth, but it wasn't spread around evenly enough for everybody to just kick back and relax. Second, he just totally misjudged human nature. He thought once our basic needs were met, we'd be satisfied. Turns out, we're really good at inventing new things to want. And finally, as a guy from that artsy Bloomsbury circle, he maybe didn't get that for a lot of people, a job isn't just a way to get a paycheck. It's a huge part of their identity and purpose. And maybe this quote is his most important legacy. When the facts showed he was wrong about something, Keynes didn't just dig in his heels and defend his old ideas. He changed his mind. He was a pragmatist, not a priest of some economic religion. He cared about what worked in the real world to help real people, not about being theoretically perfect. Which brings us right back to today. His ideas get blamed for massive government debt and inflation, but they also get the credit for saving us from another Great Depression, not once, but twice. So, in this crazy world of pandemics, climate shocks, and financial crises, do we need his brand of bold, humane intervention more than ever? Or is the cure he's offering now worse than the disease? That's the debate his ghost still forces us to have every single day.
Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment with any topic you'd like us to talk about in future videos, and don't forget to hit the like button.